Hello and welcome to another new episode of Leading with Women by Egomom. Joining us today is Deepti Rawala. She is the CEO of India's first physical incubator by the government for women entrepreneurs, VHub. She was also the Joint Director for Electronics and Semiconductors for the government of Telangana. Having worked in the Silicon Valley in the US, Deepti has worked with big tech companies like Nokia and Qualcomm. Passionate about developing the entrepreneurial ecosystem in India, she is also one of the mentors of the Atal Innovation Mission. Thank you, Deepti, so much for joining us.
Thank you, it's a pleasure being here.
So, Deepti, as a start, VHub started out as the first government-led women-focused incubator in 2019. Do you see it as a late start? How do you peg yourself against older incumbents such as Kerala Startup Mission, SINE, or CII?
So that's actually a very interesting question. So one of the things I would like to really point out is that there is never competition when it comes to looking at getting more women on equal footing. So it's not a competition at all. Number two is that we needed to have a conversation around entrepreneurship. We needed to have a conversation around startups. We needed to have a conversation in India about risk taking and starting a venture by yourself. And I think that all the initiatives that you mentioned actually cleared a path so that we can actually talk about entrepreneurship, we can talk about startups, we can talk about risk taking in a very Indian context. And I think with the path that was cleared by them, VHub was just a natural progression of a conversation which was long overdue. So I think more than a competition, it's more like a relay race, and actually it's much more complementary. So I hope that answers your question.
No, absolutely. So, staying on the topic of government led incubators, what do you think is the unique value proposition today for a government led incubator versus maybe a private player?
See, the point is incubation, right? Government, non-government, it really doesn't matter. But the tiny advantage that government-led incubators do have over, let's say, other private incubators, which are much harder to run, by the way, because they have so many other systemic challenges that they need to counter, so much financial, risk-taking that a lot of private entities are doing, but they're still doing it. One of the biggest advantages is that the government will back the startup, and the credibility that a government-led incubators program is a little bit more proven and more transparent, I would like to say, rather than compared to a private incubator. Number two important aspect of being a part of a government incubator is that whenever, let's say, you have a pilot or you have your first prototype, the government is actually going to it's actually going to be your first customer. At least in Telangana, if there is a women-led startup which is part of VHub, we make sure that government becomes their first customer, and that is like a guarantee that most of the government-led incubators across the country are now doing to promote, support, and scale entrepreneurship.
What about the flip side? Do you think that there is something the private players can give us which maybe the government cannot?
See, one of the cons. Okay, there's a lot of pros to being in a government-led incubator, but one of the cons is the misconception that is there around the functioning of government. So one big thing that I would like to highlight is that a lot of startups, they when we speak to them and say that be a part of a government-led initiative, their first thing is that government. We don't want to ever work with government. It is one of the most complicated systems to navigate and all that other stuff. So the con is that people don't have a good perception of how governments function. But I'm very happy to share that today I think governments are run much more like a corporate than many of the corporates that I personally have worked for. So that is the only con, which is the misconception around how the functioning of government. Yeah, and we do end up
And do you see?
due to this misconception, we do end up losing some of the very amazing startups which could have benefited from, let's say, the government support. You know, I think that is one of the biggest cons.
No, and I really hope that it slowly improves over time. So, Deepti, you left the USA to return. What are the biggest differences that you have noticed when it comes to women in technology and startups?
So one of the coolest things is that I worked in in my past life I worked in Silicon Valley, and one of the coolest things I think is that I see more participation of women in technology here in India than, let's say, anywhere else. The reason I say this is because we talk a lot about girls in STEM, right? There is obviously
Yeah.
a big push that is needed. But if you look around in my class when I was going to college, I barely had about 8 girls or 6 girls in a class of 60 people. But now, if I look at engineering colleges, more girls, young women are being part of engineering. There is more and more young women who are actually part of science streams and all that other stuff. So I think the participation of women is actually a lot higher here than in my previous careers, and so that has been one of the differences, I believe. But
I think this is
respectfully,
also one of the huge misconceptions that we have.
yes. The second thing I would like to highlight is, in spite of a lot of our women, in spite of a lot of women being in the STEM fields, one thing that I have noticed, and that is one of the stark differences, and a little bit of a similarity also, is that we do not have enough women leading these
Mhm.
corporates or these initiatives, and I think that is a problem that needs to be solved worldwide for having more women in science, because the culture
Okay.
change that trickles down for having from having a woman as a leader is much different than, let's say, if we only think in one angle.
So Deepthi, the next round is a rapid fire and is going to have first four questions. So for the first question, are startups viable for everyone?
No, they're not, because there's a lot of factors that make a startup viable, right? So let's take an example of the times we are living in. Before, something which was super valuable in 2020, and it made a lot of sense, like in personal care or in-person kind of stuff, which is not related to healthcare or many of the other things, is no longer relevant, right? Shopping, if
Okay.
you look at it, yeah. So it's not viable for everybody, I would peg that percentage at around maybe, like, 6 to 8% of the entire
Okay.
attempts that are made.
Okay. Is entrepreneurship the silver bullet to mass employment?
To be honest, entrepreneurship is not a silver bullet as such, but it is actually a step in the right direction, because the mindset that entrepreneurship and the understanding of entrepreneurship brings to people is actually extremely relevant for for corporates and for individuals to imbibe in their life. So more
Okay.
than the entrepreneurship itself, the awareness and the understanding of entrepreneurship is what is a silver bullet. Because once you start understanding entrepreneurship, means you're comfortable with risk, you're comfortable with
Hmm.
being agile, and you're comfortable with doing things yourself. And I think that is a silver bullet. More than entrepreneurship, the awareness of entrepreneurship.
Okay. Do you think that the pandemic will restart brain drain?
Actually, if you realize, the pandemic has only made sure that more and more Indians become, and I mean, if you look around, there is so much innovation around, right? And people have actually discovered so much more. So I think more than reversing the brain drain, it is actually going to, like, make sure that India becomes one of the most innovative countries in the world. Because a lot of times people, there is a word that I absolutely do not um, um, prefer, which is called as jugad. I call it as resourcefulness. It's not called as jugad at all. But I feel that the pandemic has made a lot of us much more resourceful and much more
Hmm.
appreciative of the resources and the things that we have, and that actually is going to help us much more innovative.
Okay. And for the last question, where is the Indian startup ecosystem the most lacking in?
I think one of the things, having worked in this ecosystem for the past 4.5 5 years, the place where we are lacking in the most is a support for newer and very unexplored sectors. See, there is a
Okay.
startup which Space Tech, right? Space Tech needs about 100 to 200 crores of investment to even start with. So I think giving a lot of the dreamers who will become entrepreneurs or startup founders the confidence that yes, you can dream big and we are here to support you is something that we are sorely lacking in. But we are hoping that as time progresses, we will get better and better at that.
All right. This actually very beautifully goes on to my next question. You talked about some sectors which are not getting enough and adequate representation. What are some niche areas where you are seeing innovations emerge?
Uh, I think one of the big things is that technology is no longer a vertical, right? So initially, when we started out working in this thing, they were saying tech sectors, non-tech sectors. But now, if you look at it, technology is no longer a vertical; it is actually a horizontal. Number one, and
Okay.
when you come to the niche sectors, I think one of the biggest outcomes of this entire scenario that the world is grappling with is how do we make services more available to citizens? How do we reach the
Okay.
customer directly? I think anything to do with direct customer interaction is the niche sector. You talk about healthcare, you talk about life sciences, you talk about retail, you talk about anything else at all. The last mile connectivity between the product and the consumer is a niche sector, and how I mean innovation is always that is I think something which everybody is banking on, and that is where we see a lot of heavy investments happening also. If you look at the recent trends of unicorns and things that have been happening during the pandemic.
All right. So, talking about your past experience, you have worked with big tech brands like Nokia, Qualcomm in the US. How does that experience inform or influence you when you work with the government sector here?
See, one of the things is that one of the most interesting things that I've realized is that when I was working in the Qualcomms and the Nokias, they are giants and they also have
Hmm.
processes, right? They have set processes in place, and that is corporate diligence that they're doing. But the government sector is again completely different because it not just only has processes, it has transparency and it is actually answerable to people. I feel that the biggest takeaway for me in the past 4 5 years is that how much more we are accountable and answerable for every single action we take to every single citizen of the state that I work for is something which is immensely humbling. And I truly respect everybody who works in government because they just don't work for a 9 to 5 thing, but they work for impacting the entire citizen's life, and that I think is a very humbling experience.
The responsibility is much more.
It's the responsibility that we feel and all of us feel every single day as we enter the office or we open our laptop nowadays is immense because whatever action we take impacts lakhs of people. And I don't think that is an experience that a lot of corporates can talk about. You can talk about impacting lakhs of customers who are actually aware that they're buying your product, whereas in government all the government servants are actually unsung heroes because every single action that they take impacts at least lack of people every hour, and those lack of people do not even know that you're working for them. I think that is amazing.
So, as part of the Indian diaspora who has returned, what is the one thing that you believe to be true that others don't?
See, so one of the biggest misconceptions about NRIs, non-resident Indians, is that I've heard that they people go to the West, they ape the West, they become Westerners. But let me clear one thing up: Indians abroad, any part of the world who have actually migrated, carry a much bigger piece of India with them and are much more Indian than many of us here living in India for the past I don't even know 35 40 years. I think that is something that I would like to really applaud and also like appreciate in Indians who've settled abroad, and that is something we notice every time they visit us also, right? Yeah, so
Okay. What is the next big milestone that VHub is looking at?
I think the one of the biggest milestones that I think we have achieved in the past 1 year is that now we have has actually transcended borders, right? When we started out, we had to actually explain that WeHub is a government of Telangana initiative, and everybody used to ask us, is it only for women of Telangana? But now, one of the biggest things that we've seen is that a lot of state governments are actually reaching out and saying, let's do something together for the women of the country. And I think that is the biggest milestone we've passed. And now, coming the biggest milestone we are undertaking is making entrepreneurship and the conversations around entrepreneurship much more democratic. So one of the biggest milestones we are looking forward to is actually being on broadcast TV. So we are starting in Telangana and we hope to scale to
Okay.
the country pretty soon.
All right. So, as the final question, Deepthi, we talked about milestones for VHub. What about you? What do you see as the next milestone for yourself?
My next milestone is I think VHub's journey is just started, and so has my journey. And my milestones have not yet been reached. So I think till the time VHub becomes a marquee and a brand name in itself, not just in India but across the world, I think our work
Okay.
continues, and that is going to be my personal milestone also. And the number two is that through the brand, it's not so much about creating brand awareness and getting lauded on platforms, but making sure that everybody, every woman who aspires or wants to be an entrepreneur knows that there is a VHub which is going to be there to handhold her, to support her in every dream that she's willing to take on, and make sure that she can soar and reach her goal. So I think that is my personal milestone.
Any parting or insightful or guidance do you want to give to maybe some women who are watching this video and want to become entrepreneurs?
So very simple. See, the point is one of the biggest problems. I think not a problem so much. One of the biggest learnings for me in life has been that a lot of times when we want to start on something, we think about the modalities of every single thing to reach a goal. One of the biggest learnings that I've actually had is that instead of talking about how you want to do things, it is always good to get started on things. So if you have a dream, if you have a plan, if you have a goal, let's get started. And as you work towards reaching the goal, modalities will always change, right? You have your certain principles and ethics that you want to follow. Your modalities may change, but your focus should be purely on the goal. So the day you get started on reaching your goal is the day you're on your path to success. So if all of us keep that in mind, I think we are all successful.
And on those words, thank you so much, Deepti, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the weekend and stay safe.